You are listening to Fantasy Filmball with Matt and Dylan, and on this show, we turn movies into sports and look at all the Oscar prospects and their fantasy value.
I believe that this is going to win Best Picture, and here's why.
I mean, Denis Villeneuve got all the nominations he needed for Dune and still missed out on the Best Director slot.
Don't let me get my hopes up. The Academy has disappointed me too many times.
Thank you to the Academy. Thank you to all of you in this room.
I can't remember the last time I walked out of a movie theater on such a high.
No matter how certain it seems, anything can happen on nominations morning.
Never count the Golden Globes for just doing something off the walls and bonkers.
It's the kind of movie that reminds me of why I fell in love with movies.
And the Oscar goes to...
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Fantasy Filmball with Dyl and Matt. My name's Matt, and this is a show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something that we don't talk about. Once again, my name's Matt, and I'm really excited to be doing this first episode of the show.
Yeah, my name's Dylan, and it's this is something I've been waiting to do for a long time. I have a history in doing radio and podcasting. I did it in college. My first job out of college last year was in the fantasy sports industry with SiriusXM, and it's something I've really missed doing. It's just podcasting and radio as a whole. And like you said, we're both people who just love film and love movies and love award shows. So this is something that is just really exciting for me to dive back into and get to express something that maybe isn't talked about as big as you may think it is.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm also really excited because, Dylan, we don't know each other that well. So this is like a good opportunity for us to get to know each other a little bit better because just to let everyone know, so we've only met online. I'm here in Toronto, and Dylan, you're in Virginia?
I am. I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
We met on Reddit because we started playing a game together, which is the namesake of the podcast. It's called Fantasy Filmball. It's just kind of a game where we bet on awards. We look at movies that we really love and some movies that we don't love so much, and we think, okay, how are these going to do on the way to the Oscars? And that's kind of the whole idea of this podcast too. We're going to be looking at some films and talking about their awards chances. Because I know for me, I have never been a big sports guy. I mean, Dylan, you were saying you did like fantasy sports and everything. I've never been a big sports guy. And so for me, movies and awards season has always been like my sports. You know, the Oscars is like my Super Bowl. And so for me, I just have a lot of fun rallying behind a film all year long and watching how it does through the season. And that's really where the idea of the game came from. Like, what if we could do fantasy sports, but with movies? And that's why we're here today.
Yeah, I still remember when you first messaged me on Reddit to join the league back for the 2020 season. That's the year that Nomadland came out on top for Best Picture. Because when COVID first started, I did like the Reddit Decade Oscars, where I put like the last 10 years all against each other in a poll. And that was my first, like, okay, movies is something I really like to talk about and award shows. So let me try to make something creative with it and bring it to a community that I know would be involved and would be interested. Because like, I'm not sure about you, but at least for me, a lot of my friends are not nearly as into movies as I am. I try to drag my family out to see the movies. Like this past year, I think I got my grandma to see every Best Picture nominee. So she was able to like have conversations with me and be involved in the overall season. Because like you said, this is our Super Bowl. Even though I am someone who is into sports, this past year, I didn't even get a chance to watch the Super Bowl because I was working on a work trip. And the Oscars were something I try to make my family come and watch so we can have that conversation. We can just watch it together and see everything, which is kind of sad to say because the Oscars like telecast has not been like the most entertaining the last few years. Give or take some stuff that they definitely didn't plan to happen. But it's always just like the thrill of the award season, like you were saying, trying to find early what movies have that rise that could come out on top and which movies are all bait. They don't have the motor to get all the way to the end of the season, and they're just going to be bust.
Such a community around this too, around the awards season. And there's just plenty of people like us who just love predicting, who love watching all the stuff. I'm very lucky because so I just graduated from university. I was a film student, but I had a group of friends who were similarly like really into awards and really into the Oscars and predicting. And so even before you joined into the game of Fantasy Filmball, I'd been playing it for years with a group of friends from college, and we'd watch all the movies. We'd, talk about everything. But it's always awesome to connect with people around the world who also love the same thing, who also really enjoy awards and predicting. And in terms of predicting, we're both pretty good at predicting. If you want to know, a reason why you should listen to this show, we're both quite solid at this. I mean, Dill, you said you came in 80th place for predicting Oscar nominations on Gold Derby this year.
I did, and honestly, I could have came a little higher, but I did take some risks, some swing for the fences. I had Mahershala Ali was someone I was riding with all season. That was my one like low ball
Ooh,
pick I was trying to get those extra points for, and I ended up keeping him in over Javier Bardem, who was someone I had at 100 to 1 odds at one point, but took him off after the first reviews for being the Ricardos came out. I was like, there's no way this movie's going to get anything just because everyone's just bombing all over it and talking about how bad it is. And as we knew, it got 3 acting nominations. And then I also had another huge mistake where I removed Penelope Cruz for Parallel Mothers. I also had her for 100 to 1 odds. I took her out after Alana Haim got the BAFTA nomination. I was like, there's no way the BAFTAs are going to go 0 for 5 for Best Actress. That's like never happened before. So like, I had to pick someone. I had Gaga, but I was like, there's got to be someone else in there too. So I threw in Haim, and those are just 2 mistakes that I made at the last minute that definitely cost me some placing.
yeah. I mean that's super impressive, but I can't blame you for taking Cruz out. She missed literally every single precursor. I don't think I had her in. My score is not as impressive as yours, mostly because I did not pay attention to Gold Derby last year, and at the very last minute, I used it as a way to be like, I'm just gonna try and go for weird odds and see what happens. Some of it paid off, some of it didn't. I didn't do very well on Gold Derby, but in my like legitimate Oscar predictions, outside of Gold Derby, because I didn't have my real ones in Gold Derby because I was going for the odds. I did get 91 out of 120, which is 1 point just below the top score, which was 92 on Gold Derby. Um, but you have to take my word for that. There's nothing to prove that I did that. But I did that. I'm not bad at this. I didn't get 70 out of it, which is what I scored on Gold Derby. It was awful, awful. But next year I'm gonna actually try a little bit on Gold Derby and do my best. Shoot my shot a little bit more.
I mean, your proof is going to be this podcast. Throughout the year, you can be like, here's the people who I think will get nominated. Then when we do our end of the year predictions, you can come in with that missing the top score by just one.
I know, and this is the year. This is the year where, actually, I will say, and you're going to hear this a little bit later. I am going a little bit very bold on some things this year. So who knows? Maybe I'm going a little bit too risky this time. But we'll talk about that a little bit later when we cover predictions. But I think this is actually a good point now to talk about how the show is going to work. So once again, this is Fantasy Filmball, and so every week, obviously, this is June right now, and so there's not really a lot of award stuff to talk about. So instead, we're going to be talking about some recent releases. We're going to be talking about whether those recent releases have any Oscar chances. We're going to be talking some movie news and some other relevant stuff to the awards race. And then every week, Dylan and I are both going to give some updated predictions based on what we've been talking about today.
Definitely. And I know, just to tease everyone out there a little bit, Matt has a really good theory about just Best Picture as a whole, which I can't wait to get into here in a little bit. But like you said, we have a recent release this week to talk about, which we'll get to in just a minute, which to a lot of people is a very bad release. But just to spice the pot a little bit, I know I'm on the different end of this most recent Jurassic World movie, and I'm not sure where you stand, but I know that it could ruffle some feathers out there for some movie lovers.
Yes, I'm not sure where you stand on it either, but I think we might be on the same side on this one. We might be.
It will be interesting, like you said. I know a lot of people feel very strongly one way or the other about just this whole franchise as a whole. But before we get into that, I know there is some current news in the movie world that you want to get into. So why don't we hop into that?
Absolutely. I mean, first big thing in the news is it was announced what Netflix is going to be bringing to the Venice Film Festival in September, which is always a really big thing because it shows us, okay, these are the movies that Netflix is taking seriously, right? Because in past years, they've had at Venice as well as Telluride and TIFF. They've brought in The Power of the Dog. They've brought in Marriage Story, and you can always kind of tell which movies Netflix really is positioning to be their big movies based on that. Because before now, we've had like what Netflix has like 12, 15 contenders, and we have no idea which ones are going to actually be the real deal. Um, so this year, it's been announced that they're bringing in Blonde, which is the new Marilyn Monroe biopic. It's not really a biopic. I did air quotes there because it's like a weird horror movie about Marilyn Monroe from director Andrew Dominic. They're also bringing in Bardo, or False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, which is the new film by Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu, which I definitely have some things to talk about with that one. And I'm definitely excited to hear your thoughts on Bardo. As well as White Noise, which is the follow up to Marriage Story from director Noah Baumbach, which apparently ballooned into like an $180 million budget, which I can't believe. It's nuts. And then the last one that they're bringing in is Athena, which I'm going to say right now is not an awards contender. It's from director Romain Gavray, who's a French director, and it's co-written by Laj Lee, who directed the movie Les Miserables, not the Tom Hooper musical, but the French movie from 2019, which stole a foreign language film nomination from Portrait of a Lady on Fire. So those are the four movies that Netflix is bringing in. And I don't know, what do you think about these four movies' odds still?
I mean, the first thing I noticed here is I didn't even know what Athena was until you were leading off the slate here. So, like you said, it's not really a contender, but it is still worth mentioning because, like you said, Netflix always has an array of stuff. But the fact that it is being sent to Venice could be a possible sleeper nomination for France when it comes to the Best International category because of just Netflix as a way for people to easily see these movies. I mean, we saw it last year with The Hand of God, which maybe wasn't the most critically acclaimed movie just because of its accessibility on Netflix. It ended up getting the nomination. White Noise is one where I am very much not thinking this is an Oscar contender. I mean, Baumbach did get in last time with Marriage Story, but like you said, the budget is so huge. I don't know much about the source material, but I know it is very hard to adapt. Maybe not to the level of Dune from last year, but it's going to be one that's very hard to adapt. It may not be right up the Oscar alley, but I mean, Adam Driver starring in it. Everyone loves Adam Driver. And Noah Baumbach does have history after in 2019 getting in for Marriage Story. However, the two I'm most confident in here is Blonde is a movie I'm going to be writing for all year. Even if I don't like the movie, just the audacity and the boldness of the filmmaking that's going to come from Andrew Dominic and the NC-17 rating. And I mean, who can't love Ana de Armas? And the fact that she's
Right.
going to be going for it in Blonde is a movie that I know when we come to our own personal drafting this year in Fantasy Filmball. Last year, Parallel Mothers was a movie I went for in the draft, and I maybe overdrafted, but at the end of the day, it came back and was a very good pick because I got in like the fourth or fifth round, and it got that actress nomination, it got a score nomination. I feel like Blonde could be up the same category. I think Ana de Armas, even though a lot of people are writing her off, I feel like if people really connect with this movie and they'll love how bold it is. I mean, Kristen Stewart got in last year for Spencer, so weird movies aren't not or like they can't get in for best actress. So I think Blonde has a shot at an actress. It could get in for costumes, and I mean I think that may be the extent of its chances, but who knows? We're super early. And Bardo, I think, is this year's Netflix push. I was really waiting to
Yeah.
see what they were sending to Venice. I was thinking maybe Rustin because Colman Domingo is that actor who's like feels like he's in that moment to get that best actor nomination. I mean, he's been killing in Euphoria. Last year he was great in Zola, and he's just had a lot of good smaller roles, but this is his first leading role. But I'm a little surprised to see it not going to Venice, but it's one that I feel like may not be done yet. So that may be why I know it hit up the fall festivals. I know every year
Yeah.
I go to the Virginia Film Festival just because that's the one closest to me, and they always have a slew of Netflix movies. And like they had Power last year, they had Marriage Story in 2019. So that's when I expect to see there in November. But for the time being, I think Bardo is definitely Netflix push. I know there's a lot of controversy with it, which I feel like you're going to be getting into here in a second. But
Yeah.
but I mean, Alejandro's never missed. Every movie of his has gotten in somewhere, whether it is for acting, directing, or even winning Best Picture with Birdman.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll kind of go over everyone here. So for Athena, I totally agree. This could be like a sleeper hit, especially because the director, Roman Gavray, his last film, The World Is Yours, which is also on Netflix, it's pretty good. it's not one that I find especially memorable or anything, but it's good. And if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. As well as Les Miserables by Laj Lee. Definitely check that one out too. It's a good movie. But the reason I don't see this as a contender is not because it's not going to be good. I have a feeling it's going to be great. It's because France will never pick a Netflix movie for their submission to international feature. I don't think that they could ever do that. France is so particular about their films must be theatrical exclusives. I mean, you've seen this. This is the reason why Netflix doesn't go to Cannes anymore, is because there is a whole bias, not even a bias. I think there's actually laws that say any film that plays in theaters in France must have an exclusive theatrical window, which Netflix does not want to give because it's quite a long theatrical window. I think it's something like half a year before it can hit streaming, which is too much for Netflix. So that's why I don't think Athena is going to be France's choice, is because it's France doesn't like Netflix. Specifically, the government of France doesn't like Netflix. I don't know about the people of France. I can't speak for them, but the government definitely doesn't like Netflix. I agree. White Noise is out. I think that a lot of people really predict White Noise high because Noah Baumbach got in for Marriage Story. And this is a common fallacy that we see over and over every year with the Oscars, which is blank director who has never made an Academy Awards nominated movie before is definitely going to get nominated for his next movie. We saw it with Richard Linklater with Boyhood as well. When Boyhood got nominated, he had never been nominated before, except for screenwriting for Before Midnight, Before Sunrise, and Before Sunset. But when it came out with Boyhood, his next movie, everyone was like, this is a Best Picture contender. It wasn't, and it never was, because that's not the type of movie he makes. And the same can be said for Noah Baumbach. Just because he made Marriage Story and that was a contender, it does not mean that his next movie is going to be a contender. If anything, I would say it's less of a contender because he just did Marriage Story. So and what you said too, it's going to be too weird. I agree. It's not going to be an Oscar type thing. But on that, I would also say Blonde is one where you're definitely more confident in it than I am. I think that the NC-17 rating is going to scare the shit out of some voters. I think that a lot of people won't even watch it. I think that the graphic depictions of sexual violence that have been spoken about in this are going to drum up a lot of controversy in the whole thing. And I think that there's going to be a lot of voters who will watch it and go, this is not a Marilyn Monroe biopic. There's going to be a lot of voters who walk into it expecting My Week with Marilyn with Michelle Williams, and they don't get that. And yeah, there's going to be some people who really love it, but I think that it's going to scare away a lot of others. And that's what Netflix has been hanging on to this for 2 years now. It's been done for 2 years, but they don't know what to do with it because it's scaring them. So I don't know. I agree. I think Ana de Armas has a shot. I think costumes have a shot. But I think other than that, it's going to scare the shit out of some people, especially because it's a horror movie as well. And for Bardo, I agree. This is Netflix's main push. I do also think that Rustin with Coleman Domingo is going to be a big contender, but I think that they're releasing that later as they're like, Don't Look Up, which didn't hit any film festivals last year and then was an Oscar contender. Or, they didn't do festivals at all in 2020, but I see Rustin as like Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which would not have been a film festival movie. It's from the same director. And Coleman Domingo, similar to Chadwick Boseman that year, is like a front runner for acting. But Bardo, I think, is their main like artsy push. It's their Power of the Dog. It's their Mank. It's their Marriage Story. It's their Roma, right? This is the movie that they're throwing their weight behind. And I'm going to be really interested to see how it pans out. Because, like you said, Iñárritu, he has never missed. Never missed. He made Birdman, The Revenant, both of which they almost won Best Picture back to back. And before that, he'd made Beautiful, he'd made Babel, he'd made Amores Perros, 21 Grams. The guy doesn't miss. The thing that is making me a bit hesitant is how the controversy is going to play out. Because apparently, and this is just a rumor, apparently there were multiple on-set deaths in this film because the production ignored COVID protocols in the height of the pandemic before vaccines. And people died. And there's been some talk about whether the unsafe working conditions of this film are something that should be rewarded. Again, this is all just rumors. This is just stuff that has been mentioned on the internet. But I'm going to be interested to see if this kills the film, because if this is true, I would almost think that, like, yeah, that should kill the film's chances, because a best picture should be a film, you're rewarding the producers of the film with best picture. And if your producing led to people dying, you should not be rewarded no matter how good the film is.
Another film that had a lot of controversy on release is Joker. And this past week, the official title and the, I guess, first draft of the script is done for Joker 2. Do you want to go into about your thoughts on, I guess, the original Joker and the upcoming sequel that I know a lot of people either really want or really just do not care for?
Yeah, I mean, I'm torn. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you think about Joker, because I love Joker. I did. I really, really liked that movie. It was one of my favorites of that year. I just thought it was an interesting comic book movie. Is it a masterpiece? No, it was really well made. Phoenix was great. And it was like a great one-off movie, which is why I'm just, I'm not looking forward to the second one. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure it'll be good. I'm sure I'll go see it. But when I watched the first one, I was like, wow, this is great. They're making a movie that doesn't need a sequel, right? Like, look, you have the MCU that's doing like 30 films a year, and this is just like a nice separate thing. Like, I got really excited for the for DC's future, because they'd been chasing the heels of the MCU for so long, and Joker felt like a moment where they were like, no, fuck that, we're going to do our own thing. We're going to just make a movie, and it's not going to be tied to anything, and let's just leave it at that. And so when there started being talk about Joker 2, I was like, oh, god damn it, god, why? um but I'll see where it goes. If Joaquin Phoenix is back on board, he had been talking about how he doesn't want to get tied into a franchise. So if he's back on, I'm sure that there's a reason why. Um, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel like a movie that needs a sequel, even though I really loved the first one. What do you think, Dylan?
I, like you, love the 2019 Joker. I know there's a lot of memes, there's a lot of jokes that go along with the film, there's a lot of controversy. Because I remember going to see the movie opening weekend, and the whole news landscape was just how this film is going to cause an upright, a scene. Uh, there's just going to be a lot of problems with this movie. And then you see the movie, and you don't really get that feeling from it. And I feel like a lot of people maybe went into that movie expecting it to be a lot more hard hitting or a lot more aggressive with its tones or with its messages. And I mean, even as someone who loves Joker, the messages in Joker are kind of blurry. He doesn't really want to take a side, whether here nor there. But I think I'm a little bit more excited for Joker 2 than you might be. I really have no clue where they're going to go with it because, like you said, it's such a great standalone movie. And I mean, the ending is up for interpretation. I mean, it did come out 3 years ago, but I still don't really want to spoil the ending for anyone who may haven't seen Joker. But I don't really know how you can spin that into a Joker 2. I know there's rumors with the title and everything like that where they can go, but I don't know. I mean, when I had originally seen Joker, I mean, I was, to our discussion earlier about film, I was kind of a late bloomer into the Oscars and film industry as a whole. The Moonlight La La Land year was really my first year really invested in the whole landscape. And like other than that, I had just seen like movies, whether they're like blockbusters or just on TV and whatnot. And before Joker, I hadn't seen either King of Comedy or Taxi Driver, the two movies that Joker ripped off with air quotes. So like I had a blast with Joker, and then after like seeing Joker and then going to watch it, was like, okay, now I get some of the criticism you may have about how it's just two movies smushed into one, just with the Joker in it. But I mean, I still had a blast with it, and I know there's a lot of just discussion on whether the Joker was needed and everything like that. But I feel like if the same crew is coming back, there's no reason for Joker 2 not to be good. It may be unnecessary, but I still feel like it's going to be a fun time. It's going to have just a great Joaquin performance, and depending on if the rumors are true, there could be a great Harley Quinn performance in there too, whether it is Lady Gaga, as some rumors have said, or someone just completely different. And I'm really looking forward to it. I hope they don't try to like merge it in somehow with Robert Pattinson's Batman or whatever the DCEU's Batman ends up being. But I think regardless, Joker 2 is something I'm going to be looking forward to. Maybe a little more hesitant than I was with Joker 1, but still something I'm really anticipating whenever it eventually does come out, because I feel like they've been talking about this ever since the opening weekend of the original Joker.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, what you were saying as well about the talk about Joker being violent. I have a good Joker story, which is when I saw the movie on opening night, I was sitting about 2 seats away from this guy who was like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like because so the whole thing in the news about Joker, it wasn't just that the movie was going to like cause things. It's that people on 4chan had been threatening mass shootings at Joker screenings. There was like actual legitimate credible threats that people were going to do this. And so literally like the US Army put out notices saying, don't go to see Joker on opening weekend. We have credible intel that something is going to happen and we don't know where. And then nothing did happen. But when I was watching Joker, I was sitting 2 seats away from this guy who kept fiddling with something in his bag. I don't know whether it was a bike helmet or something, but he just like kept fiddling with something that was making like metallic noises. And he was enjoying the movie like a little bit too much. Like he was rocking back and forth and like Joker laughing through the entire film. And when I say like there were moments when I was like, okay, this is it. This is the end. I'm watching Joker and I'm gonna die. Um, yeah, I mean, nothing. Obviously, nothing ended up happening, but like this man was enjoying Joker way too much, and he just could not stop reaching into his backpack. Um, Man, freaked me out. But obviously that didn't happen, and the movie was not as provocative as people made it out to be. But it ended up being a good publicity stunt for the movie because I think more people went to see it because there was like, oh my God, don't see Joker.
Yeah, I mean, if I was in your seat, I know what I would have said to myself. I would have just said nope. And I mean, speaking of nope, I mean, the second trailer came out this week. I don't know if you've seen it. I would tell everyone out there, please do not watch the second trailer. Just say nope to that because, geez, my excitement went from a 10 down to like a 5. Like, Nope was my most anticipated movie of the year outside the Batman. And after seeing that second trailer, I'm just like, I feel like I've already seen the movie. I'm like now, like I'm still gonna see it because I love Jordan Peele. Get Out was one of my favorites. Us had its issues, but I still had a blast with it. And Nope, I know I'm gonna have fun, but like that second trailer, now I get the gist, and I love the first trailer for Nope. It's just like one of the best trailers I've seen in a long time. The second trailer just really pulled out all the wind underneath of it.
Yeah, I gotta say that's the best transition of the show. So credits to you there.
Thank you, thank you.
I was avoiding the trailer, but I had just seen the movie that we're going to be talking about, and it played in front of it. So I have seen the trailer for Nope, and I kind of agree, but I kind of do disagree that like I don't feel like I've seen the whole movie. I feel like now with the first trailer, I basically knew one thing, which was aliens, and now I know a little bit more, which is just like eh, I don't know if this is a spoiler to say. I don't think it is because it seems like it's just the story of the film that they're trying to get clean images of the spaceship to prove that aliens exist. I don't know where they're going to go with that from there because that seems like the first act of the movie. Like, there's no way that's the whole movie. And if it is the whole movie, I'm going to be really disappointed. But it seems like there's a lot more going on to it than what was shown in the trailer, especially because, Jordan Peele has been talking about that when he wrote Get Out, he wrote 4 other movies with it, and each of them tackles a different social evil, right? And so Get Out was about racism and about uh, the way neoliberals kind of posit themselves as anti-racist, but really that's just a different form of racism. And then Us was about classism and about imposter syndrome, right? Just in the way that these clones were basically like a rising up lower class. And I have no idea what social evil, if this is one of those 5 films, I have no idea what Nope could be about. And I'm really excited to see, because I know Jordan Peele's not just going to release, generic alien movie. It's going to be something strange, something different. It's going to show us some sort of strange new world. And speaking of strange
I
worlds,
see
I'm
what you
trying to
did
copy
there.
you here. I'm trying to copy you here. Speaking of strange worlds, we also got the trailer for Disney's Strange World, which is coming out in November. Um, and I don't know how I feel about this one. Like, the world looks cool. I'm not getting much more out of it right now. But that said, I never get anything out of Disney's first trailers for their like animated movies. Like, I remember watching the Frozen trailer way back when and being like, that looks awful. It's a snowman dancing on the ice. Or like even in Encanto's first trailer last year, I was like, what is this doing? I always feel that way about trailers for Disney. So I don't know. What do you think about Strange World? What are you thinking about its animation chances?
I mean, it's something that we'll get into a little bit more next week with the release of Lightyear, but this is seeming like a pretty weak year for the Disney Pixar output. I mean, Turning Red has its fans. To me, it's just like a middle of the road Pixar movie. Like, it's good, like it's a 7 out of 10, but like it's not like a standout. And the early reviews for Lightyear are saying the same thing, where it's good, but it's not amazing. And that's the reaction I had to Strange World as well. The trailer is just like, this looks cool, but like there's nothing here gripping me about like this is going to be amazing. I mean, the animation looks great, but as the animation section of the Oscars has shown, I mean, I guess everyone votes for animated film, but the winners of the past few years have shown they really don't care about style or substance. They just care about the company that's releasing the movie. So, I mean, we'll see how its chances do once it comes out around Thanksgiving, but it's one that I'm not very much anticipating. But I'm still going to see it, and I'm sure I'll have a good time. I mean, Encanto is one I was really anticipating. I really did not like it the first time I saw it, but I liked it a lot the second time I saw it. So maybe Strange World could have the same trajectory as that.
Yeah, Strange World's giving me a little bit of Treasure Planet or Atlantis: The Lost Empire. And I,
Hmm.
I really wonder if Disney is kind of going back and looking at those films and saying, could we recreate this in our new era? So, if it does go in that direction, I think it could be really interesting. But it's not gripping me. That said, I won't take any Turning Red slander, because it's some much needed Canadian representation in
Yes, yes.
theatrical media. So, I'll take it. I get to see a giant kaiju fight in the Sky Dome, which is like the coolest thing in the world to me. So, I mean, we'll talk about animated films a little bit more next week, but let's just blast through the last couple of news items here. Christoph Waltz has been announced to be playing Billy Wilder in a new biopic by Stephen Frears, who's the director of Philomena and Florence Foster Jenkins, as well as The Queen and a bunch of other films like Lance Armstrong biopic. Um, this could be good. I don't dislike any of his movies. I dislike Florence Foster Jenkins, but I'm a fan of Philomena. And this guy, he hits with awards. So that's not for this year, but that's for next year. And definitely, if nothing else, we can definitely say that Christoph Waltz playing one of the biggest directors of all time, Billy Wilder, that is awards potential. Right there, that's a Best Actor nomination.
And as a huge Christoph Waltz fan, I mean, Django and Inglorious, those are two of my favorite movies of all time, and he's the best part about both of those movies, to an extent for Django at least. But I'm just really happy to see him get another like good role, because I mean he's had a few years where he's just been in a lot of just like meh movies, or just like he's the best part, but they're not good.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he always shines no matter what, but it's going to be really good to see him take on a role like Billy Wilder, who, again, if you don't know Billy Wilder, you should. But Billy Wilder is the guy who made Some Like It Hot. He made Double Indemnity. He made basically like all of the greatest Hollywood movies from like 1940 until 1960. Probably beyond 1960 a little bit too. But I mean, I love The Apartment. I love Some Like It Hot. I love Double Indemnity. Like, I could go on, but I'm also blanking on his films. But he's great, and this will be a great movie to watch. And the last thing we're going to talk about is one of the biggest contenders of the year, which is now confirmed by its release dates. Women Talking, which is getting a prime release, limited on December 2nd and goes wide on December 25th. which basically positions it, in my mind at least, as yeah, they're going for awards, and yes, they have confidence in it.
And I mean, we're going to talk about it a little bit more later with our Best Picture rankings. And originally, when I made my first list on June 1st, Women Talking was my number 12. But after seeing its release date, it's going to move up into my top 10. I already have what movie I'm going to switch it out for when we do talk about Best Picture later. But this release date really does set it in stone for me. MGM has been a little bit of a weird company these last few years, especially last year. Just their campaigning was horrible. House of Gucci, I mean, that was the one I guess they decided to back from the start, but as we knew, or as we came to find out, the movie was not very much liked by a lot of people. Their handling of Cyrano was awful. I mean, Licorice Pizza ended up getting in, but still, its just release strategy was very confusing. And just in years past, they just haven't had a great track record, as has another movie that I know we're going to be talking about a little bit later. But I mean, this year, it may not matter because a lot of the big studios aren't having a lot coming out, like Warner Brothers or even Netflix, just because of their cutting and funding are going down due to just how much money they spend a year.
Well, the interesting thing here as well is this is the first year that MGM has been owned by Amazon. And something that I'm finding really interesting with Women Talking is there's been no talk of Amazon like taking this release, which I almost think is a good thing, because we've seen like Ron Howard's new movie 13 Lives was an MGM movie, and it was supposed to be like a big contender, and then it just turns out that it's being dumped onto Amazon Prime at the end of August, which basically killed my Oscar buzz for it. But with Women Talking, I was worried the same thing could happen, that it would just be dumped on Prime Video. But it seems like they're giving it a full theatrical release. It'll be on Prime eventually, but it seems like Prime is letting MGM handle it and letting it be a theatrical thing, which again is giving me a weird amount of confidence in the movie. You know, you'd think that I'd be more confident if Amazon took it, but the theatrical element of it is making me think that they believes that this deserves to be seen on a big screen, and that it deserves to have that audience, and it deserves to be given the theatrical experience, which is also interesting because that is a movie that is literally just 2 hours of people talking. Like, the title is not a lie. That is what the movie is. It is women talking in a barn loft. And probably as the year goes on, I'll give some stories or whatever, but like, this was filmed literally right by my apartment. And for months, I was literally walking by the set without knowing it. So, you know, I've got a little bit of hometown pride for Women Talking. You know, this is a Sarah Polley movie, who's a local for me. So, you know, I will always cheer on a Canadian movie. That's just how it goes. No matter how I feel about the movie, I'm going to cheer it on. So I'm really excited for Women Talking, and it's also in my top 10, which we'll talk about later. But I think right now we're going to have to talk about our movie of the week, which we both definitely are going to go against the grain a little bit with, I think. And Dill, do you want to start us off?
I mean, this is a theatrical experience right here with Jurassic World Dominion, and you'd be surprised how much talking's in this movie, but just trying to keep these transitions up, you know. But here's the thing about the Jurassic World series. So Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, and Jurassic World Dominion. I don't like these movies. I don't think they're good. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is horrible. I don't think there's like anything redeeming about that movie. Jurassic World 2015, I like the premise. I like the first act. There's some comedy in that movie that works, and there's some horror that works, but it's just like The Force Awakens compared to like Star Wars. It's just a retread of the first, just with a little switches. But Jurassic World Dominion does something that I don't think any other Jurassic Park movie has done since the original, and it switched things up just a little bit. That chase sequence that happens about halfway through the movie is exactly what I want from a Jurassic movie. Dinosaurs chasing people in the open world, and you don't know what's going to happen. They can chomp people's heads off. They can just run through a building where there's just people standing there. They are out in the world. And when I heard the title of Jurassic World and they're going to make a trilogy, this is what I thought it was going to be. It was just going to be Jurassic animals and dinosaurs out and about in the world. And like, we didn't really get that in the first movie. We definitely didn't get it in the first movie. We didn't really get it in the second movie. And in this movie, we don't get it that much because they're still at a sanctuary in the third act, but we get a taste of it. And I have to commend the movie for giving me at least a taste 15 minutes or so, however long they were in the desert area where they were just having that long chase sequence with with the raptors. That was just everything I wanted from these movies. And I really liked Bryce Dallas Howard in this movie. I really did not like her in the first movie. In the second movie, she was okay, but outside of DeWanda Wise, I think she's the standout of this movie and really delivers the best scenes that she has as Claire in the whole trilogy. And there's a sequence at the start of the third act, which I think is the second best part of the movie. I don't want to get into detail too much because that sequence could be sort of a spoiler, but I really like the filmmaking they had in that scene. And I guess just my overall thoughts of this before I hand it off to you is there's a lot wrong with this movie. It's not a good movie, but I like it. It was fun to watch, and I can't say the same about Jurassic World or Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And I see a lot of people online just hating on this movie because I think it's just their ill will and their ill feelings towards Fallen Kingdom that they're dumping on this movie. Is like they already knew like going in this was going to be bad, or maybe not to that extent, but like they had seen Fallen Kingdom. They're like, I'm not excited for this. I'm just like I'm going to show up to finish it to complete the trilogy, but like I'm not looking forward to it. And there is a lot not to like here. I think the first act is pretty bad. And the third act has its ups and it has its downs. But that middle portion of the movie, which I mean, this movie's 2.5 hours for no reason. This movie easily could have been 2 hours. But there's a really good movie inside of here. It's just hidden in between a lot of just unnecessary stuff. But I just went a little bit of a rant, so I'm gonna hand it over to you and either
No,
praise this
I'm about
movie
to
or hate all over it.
I'm about to go on a rant too because I'm the same as you. I didn't not like this movie. The Jurassic World I thought was fun. It's by no means a great movie. It's not Jurassic Park, which by the way, I'm wearing a Jurassic Park hat right now. But yeah, Jurassic World I had no problem with, honestly. I never saw Fallen Kingdom. I just had no interest in it at the time. So I haven't seen that. And I was like, oh, do I go see Dominion without having seen it? And yeah, I did. I took my partner's dad to see it because he's a huge Jurassic fan. So and honestly, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the movie. It is, like you said, by no means is it a great movie, but it gave me a lot of what I wanted. I go into a Jurassic movie for dinos smashing shit, and I got dinos smashing shit. And like you were saying, there's a lot of stuff that happens out in the world. And that action scene that you're talking about, the one that happens about halfway through the movie, it's about 15 minutes, and it includes like chases with cars and motorbikes and raptors, and it just goes on and on. It that delivered what I've wanted in a Jurassic Park movie for ages. It was just a great action scene. It had me on the edge of my seat. It had me like out of breath, basically watching it. And that's what I want. I also found something interesting about this movie is it felt less like a Jurassic Park movie to me and more like a James Bond movie with all the
Hmm.
infiltration, the spying. It reminded me a lot of No Time to Die, actually, weirdly enough. That's really what the movie was feeling like to me. Um, and so I enjoyed it a lot. That said, it was really bloated. It felt like every single time something happened, something else had to happen immediately. It felt like there was never any room to breathe. And a lot of the time it was just plot for plot's sake, where it was like, oh, we need to keep things moving. We're just gonna throw more shit at these people right now. And so at the end of the movie, I did have a bit of a headache just because it just hits you with stuff over and over and over. And I just felt a little bit exhausted by the end of it, but I had a good time. That said, I do feel like there was a lot of room for opportunity because at the beginning of the movie, I got really excited because the way that it was kind of positioning the world, it almost felt like the way that they were positioning a world where dinosaurs now are a part of everyday life. It almost felt like a post COVID world where
Hmm.
this thing has happened. It's changed the way that we live, it's changed the way that the world works. And how do we move forward? Do we want to go back to what it was, or do we just keep going in this direction? And how do we reconcile with that? Because there's going to be people who are going to say, yeah, we need to move forward, and there's going to be people who say, no, we need to go back to what it was. And that's where I thought the movie was going. and then it just became another Jurassic Park movie where there's some scientist who is going to destroy the world or whatever. And I were to pitch my version of Jurassic World Dominion based on where I thought the movie was going at first, it would be that there's the dinosaurs are out in the real world now. There's no park or anything, but instead of some locust swarm, it's literally that there's parts of the world that want to eradicate all of the dinosaurs and go back to the way that the world was before dinosaurs had entered. And then the main plot would be about characters kind of going through this debate of, do we get rid of the dinosaurs or do we keep them? And in that, they have to go on this adventure to stop a group that maybe has come up with some genetic code to literally drive the dinosaurs extinct again. That would be my pitch of the movie because that's where I thought it was going, and I think that would be an interesting commentary in this like post-COVID world. But as it was, it was fun for what it was, but it was a Jurassic World movie. I wasn't expecting Citizen Kane. Um, but and it wasn't Citizen Kane. It was a fun dinosaur movie.
I mean, they
And
even
like you,
teased.
yeah,
Oh, my bad. They even teased like your like idea of the like people not liking the dinosaurs. Like at the beginning, the opening sequence of the movie is like a news clip of like a poll, and people gave like, do they want to have dinosaurs? Do they want to get rid of them? Do they want to make a new park? And, like I was like you, and I was thinking that's where they were going to go. And even after watching the movie, I was like, oh, let me go back and watch the trailer to be like, what like idea did the trailer give off? And I found that they had a prologue they released like 5 months ago that was supposed to be the opening of this movie, which delivers exactly what both of us wanted. Where it was a T-Rex going to a drive-in movie and just like causing havoc, and they cut that because of time, and instead we got, like you were saying, another evil business corporation guy, another sort of park with the sanctuary, and just more of the same instead of giving us the Jurassic dinosaurs out in the world wreaking havoc, and instead we are contained again, and we get locusts for some reason instead of making an actual dinosaur or anything like that. But I interrupted, so go ahead and continue.
yeah. Well, and I could have taken another evil science guy, but I think that these movies, just any blockbuster, is at its best when it's actually saying something about like the world that we live in. Like Top Gun Maverick, for example, it doesn't have the most to say, but what it is saying, at least in my mind, is it's talking about a world where the old is being phased out. You've got fighter pilots who might not be needed anymore, right? And so what do you do with the people who that's what they've been wanting to do? What is their legacy? Um, and I would have loved to see Jurassic World go for something that says something because Jurassic Park had something to say. Um, but all of the Jurassic movies now have basically said the same thing, which is things that are dead should stay dead. And I just wanted something more. I feel like it could have done something more. But, this is not a show about our thoughts on the movie. This is a show about what we think that the Oscars will think about the movie. So I'm going to just go right out the gate and say this is not a contender. This is not a movie that I see showing up on Oscar nominations morning. Some people might think it could get visual effects, but I don't think it will. What do you think, Dylan?
I think it will get shortlisted like Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom did, just because, I mean, some people have been saying this is a big year for visual effects. Looking at the release schedule, I don't think there's that many movies, and if you throw into like the history of like, I mean, there's always one Marvel slot. There'll be like a DC slot if a movie comes out, and then there'll be like an Oscar player that has visual effects, which this year would be Top Gun and whatnot. So I mean, I think it can definitely slide into the 10 for the short list, but like I don't think it's going to match the level of the original Jurassic Park getting 3 nominations for like sound editing, and visual effects, or even the sequel getting one for visual effects. I just think this is shortlist or bust.
Yeah, I will also say that the one thing that I felt was really shoddy about the way this movie was made was the visual effects. It never looked good to me. Like I don't know what it was, but it just looked really the dinosaurs did not look good in my mind at least. But that said, I agree. I think it will make the short list, but it's not going to get nominated because Jurassic World made the short list, Fallen Kingdom made the short list. I agree. This will make the short list. But beyond that, it is not a contender. That is, I'm laying it down right now. This is not happening.
I fully back you in that statement. Like I said, shortlist or bust, and even with the shortlist, it's 9 or 10 on the shortlist. It's just that last spot that people just give because it is the big blockbuster. It is the big name. Well, that could get in over a movie like last year, how we saw like Black Widow got in over for its name on the shortlist, while a movie like The Green Knight missed just because it's smaller. So like I feel like Jurassic World Dominion gets in on its name alone, not really for the merit of its actual visual effects. But talking about movies that could get a lot of Oscar nominations, I know that you have a really good theory about Best Picture, so I think that we should dive into that here next on the show.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. So this is going to be something that a lot of people listening are going to really disagree with. But I want to talk about one of the biggest movies of the year, one that everyone's been talking about. Everyone has been talking about Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I think it's clear this is a great movie. We all love it. It's one of the highest ranked movies on IMDb, on Letterboxd. People adore this movie. It's just become A24's biggest movie of all time in the global box office. And people have been talking. Can this movie make it to the Oscars? And what I'm going to say is going to ruffle some feathers, because I say not only yes, can it make it to the Oscars, but this movie can win Best Picture. I actually right now have it as my number one spot. I think that this movie is going to win Best Picture. And I have a few reasons for believing that. One of them is just that I think it's pretty universally beloved. It has insane word of mouth with Oscar voters, right? Like a lot of the reason why we've seen it picking up this steam is because people have been going on Twitter and raving about this movie, and celebrities who are going on Twitter. It's industry professionals who are going on Twitter and saying, go see this movie in a theater, go see this independent movie in a theater. And that's what's amazing about this movie, is that it has picked up the buzz, not because of studio marketing, not because of ordinary word of mouth, but because the industry has rallied around it. Like, that's where this movie's success is coming from, is that the industry as a whole has gone, this is the type of movie that we should be seeing more of, and this is the type of movie you need to get out into the theaters and support, because this is a big movie that is independent, made by a small, passionate group of people. It's doing something interesting, and if you go and support it with your money, we're going to see more of this. This is not something like Jurassic World. This is not a studio movie. This is an independent movie. I see the word of mouth is going to carry this to the end of the year, and I think that it's going to win Best Picture. A lot of people are going to disagree with me on that. I know you disagree with me on this, Dylan, because of a lot of reasons. So let's get into that. Let's talk about A24, their track record, and why this movie might not win Best Picture.
Definitely. I mean, I think I should preface this by saying I'm an A24 shill. If they release something, I'm going to go see it. I support a lot what they do. Even movies I don't really have interest in seeing, I still go see. And I still give them a little bit benefit of the doubt. Like recently, they released Men, directed by Alex Garland. Did I really like that movie? No, but I gave it the benefit of the doubt because it was an A24 movie. So I was like, oh, it's not that bad. It's got something going for it. I'm just not like vibing with it. But when it comes to awards, they've just continuously let me down since Moonlight, which is one of my favorites of all time. And I mean, they got in with Minari, but I think one of the real reasons they got in with Minari was due just to how weak that year was because of the pandemic year. I think in a normal year, that movie does not get in for Best Picture. And last year, they just didn't have anything. And then the year they had Uncut Gems and The Farewell and Waves, they just couldn't figure out how to campaign the three. They decided, oh, let's go with The Farewell. Let's just throw Waves to the side. And then once Uncut Gems came out and not had the same level of buzz Everything Everywhere has at the moment, but had a good amount of buzz. They're like, okay, we're going to ditch The Farewell, all in on Uncut Gems, and both of them get goose egg. And it's not that they can't campaign. I just think they are kind of confused when it comes to how to campaign and how to hit the market. But like you're saying, I think Everywhere, All at Once is their best chance because, like you're saying, the rave for this movie is unmatched. I have not seen a movie get this much unanimous praise since Parasite. And arguably, I think this movie's getting more wide praise than Parasite got. I mean, Parasite had praise from the get go all the way to the end of the season, but I don't think it got as wide to like not non film people, but people who don't like go to the movies to see international movies or smaller movies to the level that Parasite was. Like, there's people who like I went to school with, or I'm friends with from high school, or just know around town who like aren't in the movies at all. Like, they're the type of people who only see like 5 or 6 movies a year, and they said they saw this and they love this. So, like you're saying, this does have the wide array, and for just people to come in and love it and to hit all the target margins for older demographic, younger demographic, rich, poor, left, right, everyone. People are loving this from all quadrants. Just my one thing holding me back is just A24's track record. I do have it in my 10, but I don't have that number one like you do.
Yeah, and I'll address that. So for people who don't know, A24 used to be a giant of campaigning. And that was they took Moonlight, which was a $1.5 million indie, and they brought it all the way to winning the Oscar. And then the next year they had Lady Bird, and they almost did the same thing. Um, and essentially they had the best campaigner in the business. And then Netflix poached her in 2018. And in 2018, A24, with their new campaigner, they decided, okay, we're going to try to get both eighth grade and first reformed in. And then they flopped because they couldn't get both in. They had to focus on one, which was honestly they don't have a lot of money. So they had really managed to get Moonlight and Ladybird the way that they did because they pushed those films all the way. And then they divided their attention. And like you said, in 2019, they did the same with Uncut Gems and The Farewell. In 2020, Minari was a weird one because when I saw the movie, I thought there's no way this is making it in. And the reason I thought that wasn't because I didn't like the movie, it was because they had skipped TIFF. They had skipped all of the festivals except Sundance, and then they just went to some small film festivals. But the way that they did Minari is they had such a good grassroots social media campaign that they basically pushed that movie from an indie movie that no one was seeing, no one was talking about, to the movie with the adorable kid that everyone could not stop talking about. And it became an awards darling because they harnessed the power of social media to bring it to Oscar Gold. 2021, they didn't really have anything that was geared towards the Oscars. You know, they had a year where they couldn't produce anything, so they kind of just didn't have anything. And I think that they have gone back to seeing that they need to just push one film after their 2 years of failing. So if Minari could do it, this can do it. Now, people would also say this movie's too weird for the Academy. This movie is too like out there, it's too strange. But I say after the Shape of Water ones, anything's on the table. Are older voters going to connect with this movie? Maybe not, but it has passion and it has a lot of support. And even those older voters who aren't going to vote for this movie, are they going to put it higher up in their ranking? Maybe it could happen. We never know. But this kind of brings me to my theory about the Academy Awards, which is that the reason above everything else, above Babylon, above Killers of the Flower Moon, above The Fablemans, above Bardo, this is why I have this as my best picture. I believe that only films that are directed by first-time nominees can win. Which is a bit of a controversial thing because everyone at this point in the season, you're looking at those big movies that I mentioned, Babylon, Flower Moon. You see Damien Chazelle, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, Iñárritu, David O. Russell. Can those guys win? And immediately, those are the ones that we're going to think they can win because we've seen them have Oscar success in the past. But I'm here to tell you that since 2008, every single Best Picture winner has been someone who's been nominated for Best Picture for the first time. 2008, we have Slumdog Millionaire. Danny Boyle wins. 2009, we have The Hurt Locker. Catherine Bigelow, never been nominated before. She wins. King's Speech. Tom Hooper, never been nominated before. Wins. The Artist. Argo. 12 Years a Slave. Birdman is the one film where the director had been nominated before, and that was Alejandro González Iñárritu. He'd been nominated for Babel before. But then after that, you get Spotlight. You get Moonlight, which won over La La Land, which Damien Chazelle had been nominated before. 2017, you get The Shape of Water, then you get Green Book, and that was up against Alfonso Cuarón, who'd been nominated before. Then we get Parasite, who was up against 1917, who Sam Mendes, he had been nominated before. Nomadland, Chloe Zhao had never been nominated. Even last year, we all thought The Power of the Dog was going all the way, but Jane Campion had been nominated before, and Coda, Sean Heder, had never been nominated before. So this is a pattern. This is a pattern, and it goes far, far back. That the movies that we view as the early frontrunners, they fall behind. Last year, The Power of the Dog, Nightmare Alley, those were films that people thought might make Best Picture. Even The Tragedy of Macbeth, those might have been the winning films, and they didn't end up winning because those directors had been nominated before. 2020, we had Mank. 2019, we had The Irishman, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Little Women. 2018 is a great example. First Man, If Beale Street Could Talk. Both of those films, Damien Chazelle, Barry Jenkins, neither of them got even nominated. And the films that won in all of these years were from directors that had never proved themselves with the Oscars before.
So I guess
So,
my question would be is who are this year's like first time contenders?
yeah, the first time contenders this year, I have a list of them, and I have a feeling that at the end of the year, the winner is going to be in this list. And that's
Okay, let's hear it.
She Said, Women Talking, Don't Worry, Darling, Rustin, Triangle of Sadness, I Want to Dance with Somebody, Call Jane, Till, Top Gun Maverick, and Everything Everywhere All at Once. And so the way I feel about that is that all of these movies have something against them, except for two. Well, they both have things against them too. But the two that I see as the strongest here are She Said, which is the film about Harvey Weinstein and the reporters that broke the case, which is directed by Maria Schrader, who directed the Netflix show Unorthodox, as well as some really great German films like I'm Your Man, and Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a critical sensation. It has industry buzz. It has a lot of love. And I see those two as the films that are going to be the two contenders at the end of the year, where one of those two is going to win. It's She Said or it's Everything Everywhere All at Once. And so why is this? The thing that I kind of think is because of comparisons. Like when you're looking at films from directors who have been nominated before, they are apt to be compared to their past films. So, last year with The Power of the Dog, people were like, oh, yeah, The Power of the Dog is great, but it's not the piano, right? Or, it happens all the time. We compare things to other things. When Mank came out, people were like, oh, this is the David Fincher movie that people were saying could win. Even you look back all the way to The Departed with Martin Scorsese, where that film did win Best Picture, but you still hear people say that's not the movie that Martin Scorsese should have won for. He should have won for something else. So always comparisons are going to hurt directors. So when you look at these first time movies, they don't have comparisons to make. Whereas Killers of the Flower Moon, people are going to look at that and they're going to go, oh, it's not so and so. It's not this other Martin Scorsese movie. We should have given him a second Oscar for this other movie. Or Babylon. Like people are going to look at Babylon, they're going to go, that's great, but it's not La La Land. And that's going to hurt those movies. Whereas movies like She Said, Women Talking, Don't Worry, Darling, Everything Everywhere All at Once, they don't have comparisons, right? People are looking at those, and those are the first times that those filmmakers have been in the Oscar conversation, which is a huge, head start to them because no one's looking at them and going, oh, well, they should have won for something else.
You make a lot of great points there. And I guess one thing that to also chime in here to, I guess, back you in this statement is like, we were talking the other day and you said the Academy's just been a lot more adventurous lately because, like, every time when they do go with one of the more formulaic picks, they always come with something more like different and original and out there. And like last year, Coda is a very formulaic movie. Love it or hate it, it's definitely by the book. So that would like make more sense for this year. They're going to take a little bit more of a risk, whether that is in Everything Everywhere or whether it is something that I have at number one that we'll get to here in a little bit. But
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of follow on that, yeah, like you're saying, the Academy is more adventurous, and just because they picked Coda last year, they've had a pattern lately since 2015 that every single time they pick a safe contender, they follow it up with two very out there, very wild choices. After Spotlight, which was a very formulaic, it's a great movie, but it's by the books. After that, they picked Moonlight and they picked The Shape of Water, which were both really out there, wild choices. And then they picked Green Book, which was, that's back to the feel good movie that's just like it's average and, it's a crowd pleaser. But then they picked Parasite and then they picked Nomadland, which are both totally out there from what a typical Best Picture winner is. Last year they picked Coda. So what comes next? And every year we see two contenders emerge out front, and usually one of them is a little bit more out there, and usually one of them is a little bit more reserved, a little bit more traditional. And so this year I see the traditional contender as being She Said. That's the one that's going to be maybe not feel good, but it's going to be by the books. It's going to be an easy film to get down with. And then the contender that's a little bit more out there is going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that's how I see the season going. It's still early. It's still June. We still have 6 months to go until December when we've seen all of the films. A lot can change. But I'm going to say that at the end of the year, if one of the films I named is not the winner, it's going to be another film that, maybe I'm underrating right now. Maybe I don't even have on my radar at the moment.
Well, I really like your theory. Like I was saying earlier, is something that you don't really think about, but once you like lay it all out there, it makes a lot of sense. Especially the one more so conventional winner, and then followed by the two just out there winners. That this year we're definitely getting something that's just off the rails. So like that, in my mind, at least knocks off like the Fablemans. It knocks off Killers, and it knocks off um, Bardo for just like or not Bardo, Babylon. It just knocks off like those three that a lot of people are having at their number one or their number two. Just movies that are very by the numbers. Where I mean, they still have a great shot. I mean, Scorsese, Spielberg, Chazelle, those are amazing directors and they have an amazing cast working with them. But if you're looking at the numbers, which I mean, as people say, numbers never lie, we are looking at a little bit more adventurous winner this year. So speaking
Yeah.
of those adventurous winners, I know that you said you have Everything Everywhere at number one, but do you want to go down the rest of your top 10?
Yeah. I mean, let's kind of trade off, and we'll both talk our number ones. And
Okay.
so I've said my number one. It's Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'd love to hear what your number one is.
So my number one is one that I know will, I guess, sort of to the level of yours, will ruffle feathers and get people a little bit like, there's no way that can win. But I just feel like the hype for Avatar: The Way of the Water is going to be in full circle during the time
Mm,
of nominations and voting. It has that December release date. It's got Disney back in it. And I mean, if you look at it, this is Disney's only push this year. I mean, yeah, you can make the case for Empire of Light or Next Goal Wins, but this is the only thing that Disney's really going to be pushing this year. And it's what James Cameron has spent so long working on. It's going to be a tech sweep to the level of Dune last year. Plus, it is a different type of movie. It's not your conventional Best Picture type movie. And after a year of Coda, where, like you're saying, it's a more by the books winner, they may want to go out there, go adventurous, and go with something that also could be a huge major hit for the public. Like Everything Everywhere has been making box office money for a indie movie, but Avatar: The Way of the Water could be making box office money to the way of a movie that has never done before. And if the Oscars are winning ratings, this is a definite way to get those ratings.
hmm that's interesting. Now, I mean, my theory would cancel out Avatar.
It
But
would.
that said, I do think that Avatar has a chance at winning Best Picture. I don't think it's for this one. I think it's for the fifth one. I think that people are going to look back, and it's almost going to be like a Peter Jackson-esque
Hmm.
win with Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, where at the end of that series, they're going to go, James Cameron, you've spent the last 40 years working on this movie. Here is the Oscar, because he started working on Avatar before Titanic, I believe, and he started dreaming up this series, and he's been working on it for years. And I think that when we get that final movie in like 2028 or whatever, that will have been 30 years since Titanic, 31 years. And I think that Avatar 5 could totally win. But I don't know about Avatar 2. Actually, controversially, I don't have Avatar 2 in my top 10 right now. I've just dropped it out. But I'm on the Avatar hype train with you, Dill. I'm a huge fan of the first movie. A lot of people on the internet, it's become popular to hate Avatar. It's been popular to say things like it has no cultural impact or name one character. Like, bitch, I can't name one character from like the movie I saw last night. I can't name, if you put a gun to my head and said name a character from Jurassic World, I can't. I can say Jeff Goldblum. What's the guy's, I can't remember his name. That's not what I'm thinking of when I watch movies. So, with Avatar, it built a world that I love, and I'm on the train of, I think people are doubting James Cameron, and I think that you should never doubt James Cameron. He's going to deliver something amazing. Um, I don't know. I don't have it in my top 10 right now, but I'm hyped for the movie.
I think that's definitely a reason why this movie can do it at the end of the day is just because the internet buzz, as you're saying, is no one cares about the first, no one remembers it. But when they see the second and they see how good it is, they'll be like, "Oh, this is so much better than I was expecting it to be." Sort of to like the level of, I'm trying to have a good example recently. I guess Top Gun, where people they're raving about it right now, just because the first movie, while it is a cultural icon, not many people say it's a like great 10 out of 10 movie. So they're saying, "Oh, this one is so good, so much better than the first," and it's really carrying the buzz right now. And I mean, this buzz that Top Gun's having, just imagine if Avatar has that in December and January while nominations and voting do occur. And I mean, to the point of you're saying, yes, it would make more sense for Avatar 5, like what people were saying about Dune. Dune 2 or Dune Messiah will be the one that they reward Denis with. But I mean, Cameron did spend the last 11 years on this. He hasn't made another movie. He hasn't made a TV show. He hasn't done anything since the first Avatar except doing this one. So I mean, it is an out there pick. But I mean, that's what your first Oscar predictions for the year should be. Is something out there. You don't want to be conventional and go with, I mean, my number two of Babylon. I mean, Babylon's still going to be nominated. That's why I have that number two jumping ahead a little bit. But it's not something like you were saying I think will win. But I mean, I'm very excited to see a new Damien Chazelle project starring Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie.
Yeah, well, I have Babylon at number 3. And here's the thing. I know I just went on a whole rant about how people who have been nominated before can't win. So La La Land and Whiplash being nominated is a hit to Babylon. Because if Babylon does not blow everyone away to a point where they aren't even thinking about La La Land, I don't think it has a chance at winning. But that said, it will blow some people away to that level. I've read the screenplay. It's fantastic. It is an amazing film. It's I mean, I can't say it's an amazing film because I haven't seen the film, but the script is everything that I wanted out of this movie. It's basically if you crossed Mank and The Wolf of Wall Street. It's wild. But that said, again, if this movie does not blow away Oscar voters to the point where La La Land is like, oh, this is unanimously better than La La Land, I don't think it has a chance at winning. But it's my number 3. I think it's like one of the most likely films to be nominated for Best Picture. I just don't know about winning. And to that point, my number 2 is She Said, which I talked about a little bit before. It's a conventional pick, but it's a new director, and it's a film where I think that the entire idea behind She Said is obviously it's about 2 reporters who end up breaking the Harvey Weinstein case. And in that way, I think that it's a good way, not a good way, but a lot of Hollywood is going to see it as an opportunity to pat themselves on the back and say, hey, look, there was this problem and now we've solved it. Even though that problem of sexual abuse and workplace harassment in Hollywood, it has not been fixed. It's still an opportunity for Hollywood people, Hollywood quote unquote elites, to say like, oh my God, look, we did it. Look, everyone, we did it. So I don't know. I think that this is going to be the film Twitter villain of the year, actually.
I can definitely see that. I am not as high on She Said as you. I think Universal will focus on another movie, but I do have She Said as my number 9 at the moment. My 9, 10, and 11 are all interchangeable at the moment. Right now, I have 11 movies for 10 spots, so it's really just finding what is that 9, what is that 10, what is that 11. I have She Said in at the moment, but I mean, with a trailer for Rustin, which I currently have at 11, I feel like they easily could be flip-flopped. My number 10 is Set and Solid, but I had that 10 for a reason. But moving to my number 3, I have Killers of the Flower Moon. I mean, right now my top 5 outside of my number 1 is just stuff I know is going to be nominated. The order doesn't really matter. I don't know its chances to win. I don't know if the Academy will give Apple 2 in a row. But I mean, if Killers of the Flower Moon comes out, I see 0% chance of this missing. because it's Apple campaigning. We know Apple can do it. It's not going to be a silence where it's just not going to be seen in time. If this movie is done, Apple will make sure people do see it. But I do have some alternatives if Killers of the Flower Moon doesn't come out. Napoleon is a movie I don't know what Apple is doing with. I feel like it is their replacement if Killers does not come out. And I think if Napoleon is this year's push, Napoleon gets in because it's going to have a Best Actor nomination for Joaquin Phoenix. It is a historical epic to a grand scale. I know that he hasn't had a great track record in the last few years with House of Gucci and Last Duel last year, but I mean, he has the track record. He can get in for one of his movies, maybe a director, but to a scale. I mean, last year, if it didn't have the controversy or if House of Gucci wasn't the big push, I feel like Last Duel is definitely something that should have been recognized. And I guess that I'm not jumping ahead, but also just hitting my number 4 and 5 real quick, just speed it up a little bit. I have Bardo at 4 and I have Women Talking at 5. They're movies I don't know about winning, but they're movies I definitely think are going to be nominated.
Right on. Yeah. With Napoleon, it's interesting because, I don't even have it. I don't think it's coming out this year, so I don't even have it on my top 50. But I don't know. It's tough because Ridley Scott is like the evil James Cameron, where with James Cameron, you're like, never count James Cameron out. With Ridley Scott, you're like, I have no idea if this is going to be good or just a piece of shit. So I don't know. I would need the film to come out to have confidence in Napoleon.
Yeah, I don't have Napoleon on my list. I don't have Napoleon on my list per se, but I have it in my notes for saying if it comes, it's basically my replacement for Killers. I think if Killers does not come out, that's what Apple will release in that prime slot instead. Because I've heard reports that Napoleon's basically done. It's just not it doesn't have a release date. Because I mean, Apple Netflix doesn't have to give a release date just because you don't want to say oh, this movie's coming out in 6 months, so don't download my streaming service for 6 months. They're going to say the month before or something. So Napoleon's not on any of my lists, but it's in my notes for a bunch of different categories for saying if it does come out, it would be in this 10. But Apple's main push this year is Killers. I mean, Greatest Spear Run Ever by Green Book director Peter Farrelly has a shot, but like you were saying, just predicting a movie based off of its past isn't a great thing. But I have it in my top 25 just because it has a shot, and I think it could get some tech players. But like you were mentioning earlier, just because a movie's director does well in the past doesn't always mean his next one, especially for someone with a track record like his, is not a guarantee for the next year.
Absolutely. A filmmaker like Peter Farrelly has never done it before, so why would he do it again? But that said, I mean, we have some overlap in our 4, 5, 6. Mostly, so at number 4 for me, I have Don't Worry, Darling, which hasn't showed up for you yet. But the reason I'm pretty high on this, I know a lot of people aren't. This is one where Olivia Wilde I see as being that kind of, she's in an Emerald Fennell place where she's making this film. It's probably going to be a big financial success for Warner Brothers, which this is the only film that I see Warner Brothers pushing because I don't see them pushing Elvis all the way to December. But with Don't Worry, Darling, it's coming out in late September. It's a sci-fi thriller with a feminist twist. It's basically Promising Young Woman meets The Matrix. I've read the script. It's been changed a lot since I read it, but I really like the script. It has a lot of great ideas, and it's really cool. And I see that there's goodwill around Olivia Wilde, especially after Booksmart, which some people thought was going to get an original screenplay nomination. It didn't, but I think that she's in a place where people will look at this film, if it's good, and go, is it time we award her? And I think that there's a chance that she does get in. And so I see this as this year's Promising Young Woman. I think it's a film that people are going to underrate all the way up until it makes some awards. But I could totally be proven wrong on that. At number 5, I've got Killers of the Flower Moon. I also think this is pretty much definitely getting nominated if it releases. That said, I'm not personally looking forward to it a lot. I love Martin Scorsese, but I've read the script to this movie, and it bored the shit out of me. I find this to be just a really dull film. Maybe Scorsese will do something incredible with the film itself, but the script did nothing for me. And then at number 6, I also have Bardo. I've spoken earlier about how, the controversy with people maybe dying on set might kill it. I still see it getting nominated. I just think that it has no shot in hell at winning. But I think
Mhm.
that there's enough people in the Academy that no matter what news comes out about it, they will not overlook it, and it will get nominated.
I definitely feel you with Bardo. Like if I feel like if it's not like the worst case scenario where it is just a rumor or something, it will taint its chances for winning and have it lower. But I feel like as long as people do see it and do appreciate it, it is in the 10. That's always saying the movie's actually good. With Killers of the Flower Moon, I don't really read a lot of scripts before the movies come out, but I mean, personally, I thought The Irishman was exactly what you were describing for Killers of the Flower Moon, and The Irishman still got in was a front runner. So by that metric, Killers still is going to be in my 10. But I made a quick switch while you were talking there to some of my rankings. So my number 6 is The Fablemans by Steven Spielberg. I see a lot of people with this at 1. I don't think this has a shot at all to win because and when everyone describes it, they say it's his Roma, it's his Belfast, and neither of those movies won. So I would Steven Spielberg's version win. I moved She Said up to number 7, so I have both Universal movies at 6 and 7. I think he made a lot of great points about She Said, and even if it does become Film Twitter's villain of the year, most Film Twitter villains get in for picture.
Yeah.
Everything Everywhere All at Once is what I have at 8. I think it's one of those where I think if it does get nominated, like you're saying, it probably has a good shot to win. I just think its nomination is going to be a very hard
Oh yeah,
obstacle to
it's an
overcome.
uphill battle. It's an uphill battle with that one.
But I think if it does get that nomination, it is a top 5 movie in the overall ending like preferential ballot. But I think it just has to overcome. And like I said, my number 1 is the only one where it's like that's what I have winning, and then 2 through what do I have here? 12 is my like I don't know where they're exactly going to be, but here's in the order I think they will get nominated. I'm different from you. Warner Brothers, in my eyes, has like you said, 2 real contenders: Don't Worry, Darling, and Elvis. At least for the trailer from Don't Worry, Darling, I got really mixed vibes from it. I love Florence Pugh. I love Harry Styles. I thought Booksmart was great, but that trailer did not really sell me on the movie as a
Hmm.
whole. And I feel like that, as you said, it could be a promising young woman, but it also could be a film Twitter's ideal of promising young woman where it's just a complete miss and off the walls. And I'm on the other hand, and maybe this is my bias showing, but I'm very much anticipating Elvis. I love Baz Luhrmann. I think Great Gatsby is amazing. I love his Romeo and Juliet. Moulin Rouge is a movie I don't love, but I love its direction and I love its style. And I feel like he's going to bring that to Elvis. And Warner Brothers, I think, is going to have to make a decision. I think one of these movies gets in. I don't think both do. So I think it's wherever they put their campaign money and their staff is the one that will get in a year of 10. And I feel like Elvis has the better overall narrative just because it's going to have an actor contender. It's going to have some text, and it's Elvis, and it's a biopic, and it checks a lot of those Oscar boxes. Yes, it's going to be a Baz Luhrmann biopic, so it's going to be very different and off the walls, but I think it's going to be its biggest struggle because I feel like either it's going to be so crazy where no one is going to love it and enough to get a nomination because this is a movie that should hit for older audiences and the older Academy members. But Baz's style does not fit what they like. But also, Elvis is not really a name to the younger Academy members like he is to the older ones. So I feel like this movie is either going to hit all quadrants or it's going to hit none. So that's why I have that number 9 for the moment because I have more faith in that than I do for Don't Worry, Darling. And my number 10 is basically a 3-way tie. I have Top Gun at number 10 for the moment just because it is a year of 10. We have 10 nominees for big blockbuster movies like this. And the buzz it's getting right now has it because I mean we are in June, so I have it at my number 10. And then I have The Sun and Rustin as 2 movies I personally think will get at the end of the day, but in this moment on June 12th, I don't have them in my 10, but I think they easily could jump in and take out Elvis, take out Top Gun, take out She Said, take out Everything Everywhere, or if one of my top 6 just falls and crumbles, is those are 2 definitely movies that are in the conversation. And I think will be in the conversation all year. It's just do they have enough to get in? Similar to both the directors' last movies, being The Father and Ma Rainey, where one did get in last minute and almost won, and the other one missed last minute in a very confusing nomination morning for people who were predicting Best Picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I also have Rustin in. It's my number 10. I basically have it in just because If I'm saying that Coleman Domingo is the front runner for Best Actor, which I do believe, Best Actor, the winner always comes with a Best Picture nomination. Always. That's something that we thought might have been broken with Ma Rainey. It wasn't. So if I'm saying Coleman Domingo is going to win, Rustin has to be nominated. So I've got it at number 10, but that could be swapped out, especially if Coleman Domingo doesn't really hit it. But going back up, at number 7, I also have The Fabelmans, which is the Spielberg movie about his childhood. I don't think this has a chance of winning. I do think that, despite my theory, again, I think Spielberg could win another Best Picture just because he's Spielberg, but it's not going to be this one. I really doubt it, especially because I've heard reports from people who have read the script. I haven't read it, but I've heard people say that it's not that great. It's just a decent, fun, light film. That said, I think that he should have won last year for West Side Story. But that's a whole other thing. Then at number 8, I've got Empire of Light, which is Sam Mendes. Now, the only reason I have this is because I think Searchlight has to have something in the top 10. So Empire of Light is the follow-up to 1917. It's a film that takes place at a movie theater in the 1980s, and it's like a period romance, I believe. It's got Colin Firth, Olivia Colman. It might be another, like, Sam Mendes' Belfast, Sam Mendes' Fableman, Sam Mendes' whatever, like his Roma. But I don't know. I think that this film, if I'm looking at the films that Searchlight could get in, because Searchlight has a bunch of films, but this is the film that I feel the strongest about. Next Goal Wins is a light Taika Waititi comedy. I don't know if Jojo Rabbit would have gotten in if it didn't have the stuff about the Holocaust in it, which kind of gave it some gravitas beyond just being like a light, fun film. Next Goal Wins is just a light, fun film, so I don't know if it's going to have that enough to push it in. And then there's The Banshee of Inisherin, which is Martin McDonagh's follow-up to Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And I thought this might be the Searchlight film that gets in, but I've heard some negative stuff from test screenings. So I'm saying it's Empire of Light right now, but I'm really not confident in that. I just know something by Searchlight has to get in. Number 9, I have Women Talking. You have it a little bit higher than I am, despite, like, I'm really hyped about this film. I just know it's a really cold film. I do have some inside intel on the film from a friend, but I think that the reason why, I have this in my top 10, I think it's going to be a big deal because it's going to be a critical darling. It has a lot of weight behind it. But it's literally 2+ hours, probably 2 hours, 10 minutes of basically just people talking. It's not like The Father where, that film was a play on screen, but it did some cool things with the editing. As far as I know, Women Talking is just like, it's got some flashbacks, but it's mostly people just sitting around in a barn loft talking about the trauma and the pain that they've been through. So it's gonna be an interesting film. I think that this is one that really has a lot against it, but I'm rooting for it. I'm rooting for it so hard. And then at number 10, I have Rustin. And then I've got a bunch more, but some of those might shift into my top 10 or shift out. And, so I'm not going to bother talking about everything else. But, I think that we both have pretty risky top 10s in a way. Top 10s that a lot of people might look at and go like, oh, why are you not putting XYZ big film in? People might look at mine and say, why do I not have Avatar? Why do I not have The Sun? Why do I not have The Banshee of Inisherin or whatever? Or, all of these films that have had previous Oscar success. But, we're going to see how the season plays out, and it's still very early.
Yeah, definitely. I have Empire of Light at my 14 slot right now. I think it's something that definitely could happen, but like we were mentioning earlier, it's the follow-up to 1917. I am personally a huge fan of 1917, and I think any other year besides the Parasite year, it should have won Best Picture. So I feel like that conversation would be like, oh, this is good, but it's not 1917. And Next Goal Wins is also my top 20. Then I had Banshee at the initial and not even in my top 25. I had that as a Searchlight movie that's going to come out and just come and go just because just a studio can't really campaign 3 movies great.
Yeah.
And I mean, just to hit up this best visual effects category, just because Jurassic World did come out this year, I'll go through mine pretty quickly just because I don't think there's much need here. I don't even have Jurassic World in my 10 at the moment. I mean, it will get there eventually because I think it will get a shortlist nomination. I just don't have it here just because a lot of the stuff I have here hasn't come out. But my top five is Avatar: Way of the Water for reasons stated before. The Batman at 2. I have Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio at 3, which I know is a movie that you're also very high on. I have Everything Everywhere All at Once at 4. And then 5 is my Marvel slot, whether that is Thor, whether that is Black Panther, or it is Doctor Strange. Right now, I have Black Panther as my number 5, but I think it easily could be Thor or Doctor Strange. I have Thor at 6. I have 13 Lives at 7, just because I would assume there is going to be some visual effects work in there, and if that is a picture player, they always throw some picture nominees in this category. At 8, I have 3,000 Years of Longing, which after the trailer, I probably need to move it out and put in Jurassic World, but I'll keep it for the moment. And then to round out my 10, I have Nope at 9, and then Doctor Strange at 10.
Nice. I think we actually have pretty much the same 10, but in a different order. So I'm gonna rush through mine. I've got 1, Avatar: The Way of Water. There's no way anything they should just give them the Oscar right now. Nothing else is winning. At number 2, I've got Everything Everywhere All at Once. Because if I'm saying it's a Best Picture front runner, it has to be a visual effects front runner as well. But it can't beat Avatar, but it's got a great narrative with the fact that 8 people did all of the visual effects for that film, which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, I feel different about this than you do. I have 3,000 Years of Longing at number 3. And that might drop out, especially because it's an August release. But the trailer, I thought the visual effects were great in it, honestly. I think that there's a lot of visual effects in it, which is going to potentially keep it in the conversation for visual effects, at least. Number 4, I've got the Batman.
I guess my point... Oh, my bad. I was just going to say my point for 3,000 Years of Longing wasn't the visual effects were bad, was just more the movie does not look like it will be an overall contender, and I just don't see a solo nomination for it. But you were saying the Batman at number 4.
No, I mean, I totally can see that with 3,000 Years of Longing. But I think if any film, and usually there are some films that do get solo visual effects nominations, I could see that be 3,000 Years of Longing. I could totally see it be that, especially because George Miller has a lot of goodwill. And it seems like the film has a lot of passionate supporters and a lot of people who just really don't like it. It's got very mixed reviews out of Cannes, but we'll see. I will probably move this down, but I don't think it's going to leave my top 10. Actually, now that you've said it, I should probably have Pinocchio in there in that slot instead. But yeah, my number 4 is the Batman. Number 5, I've got also my Marvel slot, but instead of Black Panther, because I don't have a lot of faith in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, I am keeping it with what I've seen, which is Doctor Strange. I don't particularly like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but the visual effects there's a lot of them. They do a lot of crazy stuff with it. I think that's going to make the top 5. At number 6, I did have Pinocchio. I'm going to swap it. I'm going to say number 3 is Pinocchio. Number 6 is 3,000 Years of Longing. But I've got Pinocchio. I agree with you. Number 7, I have Thor: Love and Thunder, which the visual effects from the trailers hasn't really blown me away. It's very bright. It's very saturated. I don't know how it's going to play for VFX. So we'll see when it comes out in like a couple of weeks. 8, I've got 13 Lives, just because, even if this is a contender that totally flops, I still think that there's going to be some really interesting visual effects, and it's a more serious movie than a lot of the others here. Number 9, I have Nope. Number 10, I've got Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Again, I need to see a trailer for that one, but I know Black Panther, which is a film that I absolutely love. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies. That's a movie that, despite making Best Picture, it didn't make visual effects. And a lot of people really say that the visual effects are the worst part of Black Panther. The visual effects didn't bother me that much, but that said, if I'm looking at precedent, I don't know if Black Panther: Wakanda Forever will make it either, especially because we know this one's not going to be as big a Best Picture contender as the first one was.
You make great points there with the first one. I completely forgot that the original Black Panther missed visual effects. I guess my point with having Doctor Strange so low is just that we just got a Doctor Strange visual effects nomination last year in No Way Home. So they're going to give the same type of visual effects a nomination back-to-back years, and I guess I had Black Panther higher just because of the first one getting in for picture, but Thor: Love and Thunder seems like the most likely to me. I mean, yes, it may have the issues with it being too bright, but there are like full CGI characters in that movie, as well as it's probably going to be the most well-liked between the three, which could go a long ways for the Marvel nomination that it always gets. But who knows? This could be the first year where Marvel misses because DC does have a contender with the Batman. But I guess one movie I left off my 10, which a lot of people may be like, why isn't it here, is Top Gun Maverick, which arguably should be in my 10. But I know a lot of that movie was practical, so that's why I left it off. But I feel like it definitely should at least be like 9 or 10 in my list, which in my next rankings, I may put that in and then take off one of the Marvel movies or take off 3,000 Years, or maybe even Nope, just because Nope's coming out in July and may not be able to stay in the conversation that long, especially because for that movie, that would be its only nomination.
Yeah, we'll see Nope soon, and I don't know how much visual effects there's going to be, but yeah, I also have Top Gun missing from my list, and I do think that's because that branch has a distaste towards practical effects. Like they really, and the thing is with Maverick, it's pretty much all practical except for the fifth generation fighters. The fifth generation fighters are CGI, but that's pretty much it. So are they going to give it to that? I don't know. But back to Black Panther, I actually just had the thought, which is, is the fact that Black Panther, the original one, it released in February, did that contribute to it missing visual effects, that there was other big contenders for visuals that came after? Is Black Panther Wakanda Forever going to have a bit of a leg up on visual effects because it's releasing in like November?
Possibly. I think the reason why it missed the first time was because like Marvel always only gets one slot, and that year was when Infinity War came out, and Infinity War, I mean, I think pretty clearly had the better visual effects because it was like Thanos and Thor, and not Thor, Hulk, and characters that were all like CGI, and that's how they were made, compared to Black Panther, where there was a lot of issues with the third act, where people were like, oh, the visual effects here with the rhinos and just this giant CGI fight aren't really my thing. Well, in Infinity War, everyone was raving about how Thanos looked and how other characters that were very CG heavy look. But I think definitely the release date could help it this time around. But since we are running a little long on this first episode, is there anything else you want to say before we hop out of here for episode 1?
No, I think I've basically said everything that I need to. I just thanks for being here, Dylan. Thanks for doing this show.
No, thank you. This, like I said, this is something I've been really wanting to do for a long time, and I'm glad that I was able to find someone who either equally or even likes them more than me for award shows, which, I mean, is very hard to find. So I'm really happy that I have you for a co-host, and I hope everyone listening had a great time for this episode. I know next week our topic is going to be Lightyear, and how Matt had a deep dive this week with A24 and Everything Everywhere All at Once in Best Picture and First Time Winners. My deep dive next week is going to be focused on the animation category and how Disney/Pixar always seems to win in this category. And in fact, they've won 9 out of the last 10. But I'm going to look at those years when they don't win and what type of movies ends up taking the king down and how I think personally that's going to happen at this upcoming Oscars for the Best Animation category. Thank you for tuning to this episode of Fantasy Filmball with Matt and Dyl. Keep up to date with us on Twitter at @FFilmball. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. We even upload a video format of the podcast to YouTube if you want to see our faces. Thank you for listening to this episode of the show, and come back next week.